I had a whole show plan. I knew exactly what I was going to talk about. And then that changed because North Carolina decided to let a report get out there that they could maybe blow up the ACC.
You are Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin, your daily podcast on all things college football. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Locked On College Football. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin, and thank you all so much for making this your first listen or your first view every day. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and your daily source to stay up to date with the biggest stories in this, the greatest sport on planet Earth. Yogi Roth of the Big Ten Network will be here to talk about USC. Talk with Doug from Kings of the North about Michigan, all on today's show, which is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Chris Gordy of Locked On SEC is my first guest today because Chris, oh my gosh, where did this come from? North Carolina, according to Insider Carolina, wants to join the SEC one day. And the reason I framed my open today the way I did is they might want to bring Clemson along with them, and I think that would send other programs in the ACC scurrying to find another home, because if you take Clemson and North Carolina out of the ACC, I think they're behind the Big 12. From a football standpoint, if that comes to fruition, that could threaten the ACC in a really, really big way. Your reaction to the report that North Carolina could want out?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't shocking because I've heard a lot of this in the past couple of years. I remember asking Greg Sankey, commissioner of the SEC, 5-6 years ago about, if the SEC were to expand, what would be the factors going into it? And in more words than one, what he and other people have always said to me was it wasn't all about brands. Brands are big, but it was also about adding other states, because it was about adding more eyeballs for TV deals and TV contracts and all that. So, look, they added Texas because Texas is a monster brand. And yes, you could say, well, they're already in Texas with A&M. Yeah, but go out Central and West Texas. It's not a lot of Aggies. It's a lot of Longhorn country. So that made sense. And then adding Oklahoma, you got into a whole nother state that the SEC was not in before. And so this was about 4 or 5 years ago. Somebody said to me, what other schools would make sense? They said number one at that top of that list is North Carolina. I said, North Carolina, their football team stinks. Why would they want that? They said, no, it's about getting into a state you're not currently in. So you get all those eyeballs. But on top of it, they said, kind of a consolation prize of it is the basketball. You get a huge basketball brand like UNC and the Jordan brand and all that. And now, lo and behold, look where we are, Spencer. In the year 2025, Bill freaking Belichick is the head coach of North Carolina. And they got a Charmin soft schedule. There's a chance they're really good now. And so now you get a lot of interest in North Carolina TV market, North Carolina basketball, and North Carolina football maybe being, entering into a possible big-time program. So there's that. The Clemson one has always been on the doorstep. I mean, again, they look at us. You got the South Carolina Gamecocks, so you already have much of the Palmetto State, but Clemson's been a big brand, man. Won a couple of national championships here in the last 10, 15 years. So, again, if you got a chance to bring them in as well. I've always said Florida State makes a lot of sense. I've been on campus in Tallahassee. You literally drive through when you're driving from Louisiana or Alabama over to Gainesville. You pass through Tallahassee, go on the I-10 corridor. Like, it's right there in the SEC footprint. But I know there's been a lot of talks back and forth, obviously, with the contract with the ACC on getting out of these contracts and all this. But again, not shocked by the Tar Heel news, but certainly, again, it kind of shows the SEC is not resting on their laurels. Greg Sankey will say, 16, we feel strong with 16. Yeah, but if other conferences are expanding as well, you'd be smart to do your diligence and have those conversations.
I agree with just about everything you said, except for North Carolina could be good this year. I might be one of the bigger anti-North Carolina football team guys this year. I don't think they're making a bowl game for Bill Belichick.
Their schedule.
I know their schedule. Yeah, look at their coaching staff. It's Bill Belichick and Freddie Kitchens with Gio Lopez. Give me a break, man. Speaking of Clemson, they might win the national championship this year. I haven't settled on that, but I'm considering. So bringing this back to North Carolina, the other angle that I think is worth mentioning here that'd be interesting is if they bring Clemson along, I think that it opens up a world of possibilities for other conferences to make a move. Does the Big Ten want to go down to Florida. They're already on the East Coast. Maybe they'd go after Florida State and Miami as well. Would the Big 12 re-engage, or I don't know if they ever have engaged specifically before, but would they look at a game or at a school like Pitt and say, hey, we want that backyard brawl to be a conference game now in the Big 12? And the other thing with the potential of adding Clemson one day is, you're doubling down on the state of South Carolina, where obviously there's a pretty sizable couple of fan bases there. I'm always a fan of this. Bringing a rivalry game into your conference, look at the, other advantage. Maybe not the primary motivation, but you bring Texas into the SEC, you get the rest of that state. But Texas A&M as a rivalry football game, Chris, is one of my favorite things that realignment has brought us in recent years. I think Greg Sankey, maybe not top of his priority list, but looks at the idea of having SEC patches on Clemson and South Carolina in that rivalry game and says, heck yeah, sign me up for it.
Yeah, I mean, that would be a lot of fun. And then again, the basketball front. If you could have North Carolina, Kentucky as an SEC, in-conference game, I mean, let's schedule the home and home for that every single year. So that would be a lot of fun. So there's a lot that could fall from it. I just feel like also some of these conferences maybe pump the brakes on the wanting to expand so much, because again, we're just running through the SEC and talking about conference inequity, and there are some teams that have a juggernaut of a schedule in conference, and there are some teams that don't. I mean, I was just looking at Indiana's schedule in the Big Ten. They don't play Ohio State or Michigan this year. I mean, it's just watch what we do with expanding these conferences, because the whole thing about being a conference is you play everybody. Everybody's kind of, okay, we don't play you this year, we'll play you next year.
Those days have passed us by at this point. Like, I just to be clear, I don't want this to happen because I want everything to settle down. It just refuses to settle down consistently. But that is one of the problems with these mega leagues, Chris, is Missouri and Florida play in the same conference. You look at their schedule and you're like, this isn't the same. This isn't just as hard. You can't control all of that, but that's the issue.
Well, look at Texas and Oklahoma. I mean, Texas got the luck of the draw in their first 2 years of the SEC schedule, and Oklahoma got all the toughies. Oklahoma plays LSU and Alabama, and, Texas got Georgia, but it's their one tough game. So, I'm kind of with you. I was in California a couple weeks ago at San Francisco and made a trek over to Cal's campus. I'd never been there. I was like, let me go check this out. Walking around Cal's campus, and climbed up high in one building, and you look outside the window, and there in the distance is the Pacific Ocean. And to my right, I looked and saw an ACC logo and went, this makes no flipping sense.
That's so bad.
The Atlantic Coast Conference, as I'm staring at the Pacific Ocean, just doesn't make sense, Spencer.
It does not. Cal's campus, by the way, beautiful. Beautiful campus. When it gets rocking, Memorial Stadium is great. That's a not all the time deal, unfortunately. But, Auburn a couple years ago when they came to town, that was a phenomenally ugly football game. But that, again, it's the fact that, that was a big non-conference game, and Cal made that return trip last year, of course, and Cal's going further for conference games. Can't play. I hope this all settles down. I hope the ACC sticks together. I hope we get a big merger in 2030, 2031-ish, and we can get back to divisions that make geographical sense. But I don't know. Maybe we will. Maybe we won't. We'll always ask Chris Gordy of Locked On SEC to come on. Of course, great as always, Chris. Lincoln Riley needs a good season. Yogi Roth joining the show next. First, this episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Summer sports, they are in full swing. And whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel's the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action, so why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. And guess what? If you are interested in wagering on college football stuff, you've got all of the college football content you could possibly want over at FanDuel. You've got win totals. Individual games can be wagered upon, which are less than a month away. How exciting is that? You have got national title odds, conference title odds, Heisman odds. Everything you could possibly want is all over there at FanDuel. So make sure you go and check them out. If you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. That's a pretty great deal, so make sure you go check it out. $5, and if you're right, $150 in bonus bets just like that. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Welcome back to Locked On College Football. Spencer McLaughlin here. Yogi Roth of the Big Ten Network here once again to talk about the USC Trojans, a program you've covered for a very long time, dating back to the days of the Pac-12, RIP. And
Pac-10.
Pac-10, yes.
Yeah,
even in the Pac-10. How about that? That's how long he's been around college football. Not trying to date you here, of course, Yogi. But the Trojans come into this season, I don't think where they expected to based on where they entered last year. I think there were higher hopes. I had higher hopes for USC last season. They come with 6-6. They do get the bowl win against Texas A&M, 2-0 against the SEC. Not a bad year for the Trojans, but I feel like the season they had last year has ratcheted up the pressure on Lincoln Riley this year to have, I don't think he needs to have a 10, 11, 12 win season, but it feels like he's got to be in that 8-9 win range and at least hunt around the playoff discussion, or 2026 might be hot seat talk. That's the way I read it.
Yeah, I think that's probably a narrative around the country. Great to see you, by the way.
Likewise, man.
Success, man. I've loved watching you grow as well. I can remember when you first started all this content that you're creating now. It's amazing whenever I see it on social or pop through my feed. To that point on Lincoln, I think if I was going to talk to the USC fan, or even the college football fan in general that just thinks SC should be Pete Carroll SC, a couple reminders. One, if you took out Pete's 9-year run from 1980 to now, how many 10-win seasons do you think the Trojans have had?
Well, see, Clay Helton had one. I think there was one with Lane Kiffin in there when they were on probation. I'll put a couple. I'll say 5.
From 1980. Think about that. From 1980 to 2025. You're close. It's 6. It's Larry Smith.
I'm pretty proud of that guess. I'm not going to lie.
Blaine, Sark, Clay had 2, and Lincoln had 1. So I say all that of like, everybody thinks, I think, that SC is supposed to win all the time. Like, it's traditionally been hard. And that was in the Pac-8, Pac-10, Pac-12, and now here on the Big Ten with 18 teams. In addition, in the Big Ten last year, there's 31 conference games decided by a score or less.
Right.
Lincoln Riley was in a lot of those, right? I mean, 2 and 5 in one-score games. To that point, I believe this about SC, and I said it last year. I said last year is a foundational year. So if we rewind, year 1, lightning in a bottle. Caleb, away we go. Year 2, let's continue to lean on Caleb and supplement the losses up front in the portal. Didn't work. Year 3, let's reset. And he said this on my podcast about a month and a half ago of, we needed a reset. We were going to build it in high school recruiting, change our defensive staff. And last year, I kept calling it a foundational year in the program. And I think it was. All those close games that I referenced, they had a quarterback change, the defense got settled, and they didn't have a first-round draft pick. They didn't have a game record on the defensive front. Right? I think Jalen Smith was their first player drafted in the 3rd round at safety or in the secondary. To that point, here comes year 2 now, and I think that foundation has been set, and I think, to your point, they will take the next step. Now, the question is, who is their game record? Who is their game record? Who's the guy on the defense front that's just going to end the game? And I think in this league, and I've been running it by coaches since we've been here at Media Days, of Big Ten's always been a good scheme league, great scheme league. I think now it's a matchup league in terms of, like, it reminds me of the NFL, in terms of late in the game. You're going to need Jade Mayava, Amakai, Lemon, Jacoby Lane. They're going to have to make a play. They're going to have to win on 3rd down. Ball's going to have to be perfect, and the coverage is going to have to be right. The blitz, I think that's how these games are going to go. It's going to feel like the NFL a lot. So you look at Nebraska, Iowa, Minnesota, Jonathan at Michigan State, like Michigan. These teams that I would consider like a little bit below Ohio State, Oregon, and Penn State talent-wise this year. There's 10 to 12 teams that can knock each other off every weekend.
Yeah.
Right? Wisconsin and Purdue are kind of like unknowns, but the rest of the league, anybody can get anybody. So will they be 6-6? Maybe. Will they be 9-3? Maybe. Like, I think they'll have that moment, but I think with how they're recruiting, Chad Bowden and the GM, it's kind of like Lincoln's gotten 2 bites of the apple as a head coach. First 2 years, reset. It's almost like here's, to me, like almost like year 2 of him as the head coach, and I know that's not reality. I know fans are pissed and like, hey, it's year 4, like you should be going to the playoff every year. Pete did it in year 2. We're in the Orange Bowl. We never lost ever since. It's a different era. It's a different league, man. So I just think the perspective on that, and if they did have a tough year to change, you're just gonna set it back again.
Yeah.
You know, like in my opinion, because I think there's momentum there. So to the Trojan fans out there, I hear you. Graduated, master's degree at SC. I'm calling their opener. Always love the Trojans. Always pulling for them. Except when I'm calling games, you're just calling the game. But I think they're really heading the right way. And then once it turns, it won't stop. It won't stop. It won't stop. You see it in recruiting this year.
Yeah, and I think with the recruiting class, I wanted to bring that up. That does kind of shift the narrative of sorts surrounding USC, because in the last couple of years it was, hey, we're going in the wrong direction here. It was 11 wins and then 7 and then 6 in the regular season, and the recruiting isn't where it should be. Well, now you look up and it's like, well, USC has the number 1 class, and I know plenty of people think, well, they won't finish with the number 1 class. Their floor is a top 5 class, which is where USC should be, right? With the amount of talent in Southern California, it's insane. So
the amount of commits in Southern California that they have.
Yes,
I mean, that's really the story.
Exactly. Is they've really attacked that, and Chad Bowden, to your point, coming over from Notre Dame has been a huge piece of it. But I think it shifts, or it should shift, the perception of Lincoln Riley a little bit. And I like what you said, that, this is kind of year 2. Like, the first couple years, they tried an approach, and it was one good, one bad. But then they realized, okay, we can't sustain this. This is not how we're going to build going forward, and we have to attack the high school recruiting. Well, now they are, and so I wonder how. Let's say I'm predicting them to go 8-4. I think they're going to split. Yeah, I think the Michigan schools could give them a tough time in the middle. I think Notre Dame on the road is a difficult game. I do think some of those one-score games flip back in their favor. And now that I've said that, they'll be Scott Frost, Nebraska. Like that jinx has just been put out there. So I apologize, USC fans, for putting that out there. But typically when you're in those one-score games and you lose a bunch of them, they tend to flip back. But the door swings both ways. Typically, if you win a bunch of them, it's like, you're going to regress back to the mean. For USC, that should be. I mean, they're 1 play away from beating Michigan. They're a 2-point conversion stop away from beating, Penn State. Minnesota and Maryland were close games. I think Maryland was 29-28. Yeah. Maryland went for 2. Like, you get a stop there, and you get 1 stop on the goal line against Michigan, and suddenly, 8-4, and that feels a lot different. But I want you to talk about the recruiting aspect of. Let's say, I over predict USC's record for a second straight year. Let's say they go just 7-5. Do you think that lands differently because, hey, we have number 1, number 2 recruiting class in the country?
I don't know. I think that they'll have to message and communicate throughout the season. Right? I mean, the voice from outside can be so loud, like on social media, and that voice matters. But in the pie of mattering, like, it shouldn't be very much, right, in my opinion. Jen Cohen and company, like, they'll assess where they're at. To me, I love the recruiting class, and it reminds me of what we did back in the day. Like, if you said to me, all right, be the GM of USC football, I would say, take what we did back in the day under Pete and modernize it. So what did we do back in the day? We recruited the Daylats out of Bakersfield to San Diego, and you only left California for a first-round pick. Brian Cushing, Patrick Turner, John David Booty, like, you could see the names, right? Like, there weren't a lot of misses. Mike Williams, like, you didn't go out of state and miss very often. And I see them now doing that. And this class, there's a world where they're going to play early, right? So if you really buy into the vision of this thing, and they're paying Lincoln for a long time, right? Like, a lot of money, at least reportedly, that they got us. To me, it'd be smart to play the long game in this. Bring these young players in, right? Jane Mayava, has 2 seasons left. Who knows? Maybe he balls out and leaves. You got Hassan Longstreet. Right? Like, you've got a nice class. You got a freshman quarterback, or a high school quarterback, a senior. I just saw at Elite 11, absolutely balled out. Like, I think they've got and are continually getting talent. So 7-5, here comes this hungry freshman class, and can you flip it in that regard? Like, here's some more pieces that I think can elevate. You look at, like, Decory Moore at Oregon. He's a freshman. To me, he's a starter. Like, I think SC's class has some players like that can really impact them on the field when they get there. And then you're leaning on it. And the challenge is, and I'm going to say this again today on set, is every team in this league got better. Every team got better from last year, roster-wise. It's the best class of quarterback play in the history of the Big Ten, in my opinion. History of Big Ten.
Even with all the guys that haven't quite proven it yet, like, there's
not as many as you think. 5 quarterbacks return with 5+ starts on their respective team, and then who do we bring in? Fernando Mendoza, 20+ starts in his career. Like, you start looking down the roster, and you're like, okay, Iowa, Mark Gronowski, back-to-back championships at his level with the current head coach at Washington State.
Right.
You start looking at the schools. You look at Nico Iamaleava. It's the first, players that Josh Rosen I would pay to go see play. At UCLA, he's a fan. I'm like, I can't wait to watch this dude. Like, everybody talks about the drama. This will let his team to the playoff. Like, he's not like he's a bad player. He's one of the top quarterbacks in the history of recruiting in his, not history, but in recruiting his year that he came out. Then you look at the unproven players. You can look at Drake Lindsey, who might be one of the better quarterbacks PJ Fleck's ever coached. And he was hanging on the coattails of Max Brosmer a year ago. I look at Preston Stone coming in Northwestern. Like, you look at just
sneaky nice quarterback move
Aiden
by David
Childs
Braun.
will be in his next year.
Yeah.
I think Dante Moore might be the first quarterback drafted out of this group. I think he's a monster. I think he's even won the job officially. And I think Austin Novosad is a baller too. Like, Oregon has the best quarterback room in this league. Drew Aller, like, you start going through the list. Julian's saying, like, it's loaded, man. Which means these games are going to be tight, and it come down to these moments. So, to your point on USC recruiting, if they finish 7-5, like, hang on to that class and keep selling what they've sold. You're going to come play early. We did that back in the day. We'd have a team meeting where we show every player on the team, the 25, 30 guys, highlight videos. Be like, hey, I can remember it like yesterday. Hey, Thomas Williams. Hey, Ray Malunga. Hey, Oscar Lua. This guy's coming to take your job. And we told him, just like we told you, he's going to get a run with the ones first day of training camp. And they would. And the whole idea was, you're not going to prove that you're getting screwed. You're going to prove that you're willing and ready to play, or prove that you're not able to play. And that was really cool, because as a freshman, you're like, yeah, you're ready. Third down, blitz pickup, like, on my son Longstreet. Yeah, I need to be better. And it was a great way. And I see when I'm at SC practice and talking to the staff, I think that's where they're headed, man. So I'm bullish on them, but it won't be easy. Nebraska, Raiola, like, there's so many of these guys that are coming back that are going to be hard to beat. So you're going to have to be on it. These games are going to be tight late.
Yeah, I like what you said about, the games kind of being decided on the margins or late. Because I think about a team like Michigan State, where do I think they have a top third roster in the Big Ten? No. Is it top half? Maybe not. But Jonathan Smith has overperformed with having less talent before. He's in his second, and let's not pretend like Michigan State was a disaster last year. Like, could they compete with the big kids? No. They weren't able to do that in year one, but in year two, can they take a step forward?
Go watch the Ohio State game. Go watch the Michigan State-Ohio State game again. If it's not for the turnovers inside the red zone, like, it's a 0-0 game at half.
Right.
That's what I mean by, like, these, the steps of Aiden Childs, the steps of Damon Williams, the steps of Dylan Raiola, the growth of Dante Moore. Like, I think it's so not talked about. So not talked about. And I know a lot of these guys from my time at Elite 11, and you go to these campuses, you watch them compete. I just think at quarterback, I always look for unique traits. Like, you have to have one. And when I go down this list of projected starters, I see a unique trait in each guy, for the most part.
A lot of traits.
Going out of Purdue. But even like Billy Edwards, his unique trait is professionalism. He comes in there, and these guys see what it's like to work as a starting quarterback. Like, this is his last shot. He's got a ton to prove. Like, there's a sense of urgency there. I just think that's going to allow these teams to get the best out of their rosters every week. And that's why I think these games are going to be tight. Like, I can't wait to call. Like, I don't get the best game in the Big Ten. Cool. Because every game's going to be hyper-competitive. We had 7 games last year. We called our crew bangers only. There was only bangers every week. Like, it was sick. Awesome. So Guy Averman and Rhett Lewis, like, we're going to run it back again, hopefully, because I think it'll be that tight.
That's awesome. Yogi Roth, USC. Great, as always. Bangers only.
Bangers
My
only.
man.
Let's
Appreciate
go.
it.
Let's go.
Michigan is 1 year away. I'll tell you why next. Thrilled to be joined here on the show by Doug Lesmerises of the Kings of the North podcast. So that means we are talking Northern football, of
Northern
course.
ball.
And what better way to do that than the Michigan Wolverines, who I contend, Doug, because of a favorable schedule, I'm picking them to go 9-3. But I wanted instinctually to pick them to go 8-4. Because I think they're 1 year away. I know people talk a lot about Michigan as, they're physical, they run the football. Sherrone Moore's a great in-game coach. I agree with all of those things. But what goes overlooked of those Big Ten championship, national championship season, the seasons they had, J.J. McCarthy was 65%, 72% completion, and he had a touchdown-to-interception ratio in the low 20s, and he had 4 to 5 picks a year. That was high-level quarterback play, and I hope Bryce Underwood starts, because then in 2026, I think Michigan could be seen as the Big Ten favorite, or certainly one of them. So I think Michigan is a good team, because they were a respectable but not great team last year. I see them this year as they're going to feel like they're 1 year away, and I'm excited about Bryce Underwood.
They really have such a foundational defensive identity now that to lose Mason Graham and to lose Kenneth Grant and to lose Josiah Stewart on that defensive line and still have so much back, to still have Derek Moore, to still have Rayshon Benny and a bunch of other guys. They do a great job I think Ohio State did a good job last year, like preparing for a long season and getting through the entire playoff. But Michigan in 2023, before we were at the 12-team playoff, just did a great job rotating guys. Like they really will go 16, 17, 18 deep on defense, and it helps them during the year, but also helps them with the next level, that they're always ready, even if they lose a bunch of guys. So defensive identity that is like kind of locked in, even when you lose great players, and even when they lost their defensive coordinator to bring in Wink Martindale last year, who was steeped in that system, and I thought like real questions about it, and then like it worked out pretty well. And the thing that I wondered about Michigan last year, and I think this has happened with a couple teams in the North, is was there a good team hiding there behind inadequate quarterback play? And then by the end of the year, when they beat Ohio State and Alabama, I think you saw that. So I think about it with a team like Iowa. I think about it certainly to a lesser degree with a team like Northwestern, but I think about it with Michigan. Bryce Underwood doesn't have to be a superstar this year. What if he's okay? Because last year their quarterback play didn't even give him a chance most weeks. What if he's like fine with flashes and they have that defensive identity and they're always good on the offensive line? Like, I'm curious, and we're going to find out in September because they go to Oklahoma and Nebraska in the first 4 weeks of the season. So, like, we'll know. So I'm a little in between. I think when I did mine, I do think I had Michigan 9-3, 6-3 in like a big mishmash because I think the middle of the Big Ten.
You think
really
they
good.
go on the road, beat Oklahoma week
do.
2 with Bryce Underwood potentially start? That's one I have written in as a loss because the Sooners are at home. I think there is a huge amount of pressure on Brent Venables to win that football game.
Is it like rise to the occasion pressure, or is it like crumble beginning of the end pressure?
I think it's rise to the occasion because they've got the more experienced quarterback in there at home. I mean, Bryce Underwood will have one game under his belt, and it will be it will be against New Mexico at home. Like it's a soft opener, and we're not getting into the scheduling debate here. But like
really good Michigan defense. Like with real like Rod Moore back healthy at safety, like I think real like as good I think of a linebacker core as you'll find. Like I'm very curious, and I know people are excited about John Mateer and Ben Arbuckle, but like that's can Michigan go down there and win and that game means a lot to Sherrone Moore, obviously his ties to Oklahoma, and that he didn't want to be suspended for that game. Will they go down there and like win a grinded out game? There's a lot of talk about John Mateer and Ben Arbuckle, but like they're going to save. They're there to save a program and save a coach, and that is a lot to put on guys who were at Washington State last year. So I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but I don't think Bryce Underwood has to go win that game for Michigan. I think Michigan's core, Michigan's defensive identity, and then a couple flashes of Bryce Underwood might be enough. And we just don't know how much Mikey Keene might play there, like the guy they brought in from Fresno State. He was hurt in the spring. You don't know how the quarterback battle is going to go in August. It seems like the assumption that Underwood's going to play this year, like that seems like the right assumption for sure. Will he be the every snap guy in week 2? I don't know. I don't know for sure, but like, could Michigan go there and win like 19-16? I think they could.
I think that honestly would be higher scoring than Michigan would want it to be in that game.
Yeah.
I think they would
11-8.
I think they would love for that to be 11-8. Yeah. I like that one. A touchdown, a 2-point conversion with a 2-point conversion, and then 3 field goals and a safety. I think Michigan would take that sort of game. The interesting thing with Michigan is, I'm sure to plenty of Michigan fans out there, I sound like I'm hating on the Wolverines again by picking them to go under their win total of 9.5 in the Big Ten and saying they can't win this game and whatnot. But remember, 9-3 is a step forward. 8-4 is a step forward from where they were at last year. And I'm with you on, average quarterback play can get you there. But when are you going to get that average quarterback play? If it does wind up being Bryce Underwood, I think that's kind of the expectation because Keene is not, expected to be fully healthy. Do you get the best of freshman Bryce Underwood? Certainly you're not going to get the best of his career in his true freshman season. I don't think you're getting that in week 2. But just, look at his 2025 season at a glance. Are you going to get the best of him on the road against a defense that has, I think, really come into form under Brent Venables? Remember, they were bad his first year there. They have kept getting better and better, and he has instilled that defensive identity there. That crowd is going to be on top of you.
Yeah.
I think that is asking a lot. Like, even though he doesn't have to do a ton, I agree. I don't think that Michigan is going to be able to do to Oklahoma what they did to Penn State a couple years ago, where they ran it, what was it, 27?
Not throw the ball in the second half.
Not throw it in the second. Okay, I don't think you can do that. He's going to have to make a couple of throws, and I think that that's a really difficult spot to be in. This would be a great time to have Colston Loveland on your roster. Alas, they don't.
Right.
And
they like Martin Klein, but yeah.
Yeah, but is he Colston Loveland?
No,
probably not. So I think that Michigan is a good team, a forward-moving program, and I'm going to be ridiculously bullish on them in 2026. I just think they are 1 year away from getting back to that Big Ten championship game expectation.
They might play a freshman at left tackle, right? 5-star freshman Andrew Babalow might win that job, like that, which is all going to your point of, are they a year away? Like talented running backs, but like young guys, right? Are they?
I do love the Haynes of it. I love the Justice Haynes edition. I think
Justice
it's a great
Haynes
fit.
Jordan Marshall combo. Like I like when you can see the roster building. Like when everyone's getting transfers, but are you getting transfers strategically, or are you getting transfers from desperation? It's like, hey, let's bring in a veteran guy to add to our good young running back, to have like a two-headed monster in the backfield, like that kind of stuff. You really like. It's hard to evaluate them because last year was so weird, right? And it's a little bit, I think, are we all still waiting a tiny bit about exactly how all this stuff's going to shake out with the NCAA and like that's its own separate thing, but as everyone's still waiting, I think a decision, which everyone assumes will come before the season, a decision will be good for Michigan, just so like that's not hanging over them anymore. But it is, considering this team won the national championship 2 years ago, it is hard to get your head wrapped around them in some ways, because the thing that I think matters to me a lot is that last year, losing Jim Harbaugh, losing all the talent they did, and all the controversy, it absolutely could have gone south.
Yep.
And right when it felt like maybe it was, they beat Ohio State and beat Alabama in the bowl game. And that showed me something about Sherrone Moore and that staff. It showed me something about the talent that maybe is there that you weren't aware of. And again, they did lose a lot of talent. They like first-round dudes, like real dudes. Loveland, Graham, all those guys. I just think Michigan might be pretty good. And the quarterback play was non-functional. Like, it was non-functional. And so, yes, Bryce Underwood has a lot to learn, but dude, like that guy's going to do 3 to 5 things a game that their quarterbacks didn't do at all last year. And he's not going to be perfect.
No.
But they've never relied, like J.J. McCarthy was a first-round quarterback, but they didn't ask J.J. McCarthy to carry them. J.J. McCarthy made a throw on third down, did that kind of stuff. They're not a program that's built around their quarterback carrying them. And I do think there's a depth of talent there. I think they've continued to shape that roster in the right way. But we'll find out. Week 2, week 4, we're going to find out. It's not like the hard thing about Michigan in 2023 was like their schedule was so easy that you got to November and you weren't sure how good they really were. It was like, no, they won the national championship. They were 15-0. They were really good. But we wondered. We're not going to wonder this year. We'll know by the end of September.
Yeah, the Oklahoma game, one of the best non-conference games in all of college football. The Nebraska game, I think, is going to tell us a lot because Sherrone Moore won't be there for that game. If I'm Matt Rule, bulletin board material right there is like, he picked a game that he wasn't going to be here for, and he picked you and Central Michigan. I would put it on the locker room. I would put it on guys' dorms. I would put it everywhere that you possibly
And Nebraska's going to be good, I think.
I agree. I have Nebraska going 9-3 this year. I think Nebraska is a
I have like
is a good
everybody in the
football
Big
team.
Ten going 9-3.
You know what? I think it could be a really fun conference, and then the Big Ten will feel like the SEC. Hey, our 9-3 team should get into the playoff, and we can revisit all.
Just a reminder to everybody around college football: keep that energy. That energy you had last year for the 9-3 SEC teams. Keep it for the 9-3 Big Ten teams.
Yeah, I'm sure that's exactly how it will go down. Doug of Kings of the North joining me here to wrap today's show. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time, and until then, hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.